I had a question. I had David Linthicum on my previous episode, and he's a chief cloud strategy officer at Deloitte, and he talked a lot about governance for edge devices and IoT devices, and how it's obviously really hard to do. I mean, you have issues like physical security; someone can just take
Yeah.
the device and walk away. Um, how does that figure into cloud posture management? I mean, like that's becoming more, and certain companies, their whole applications are based on those edge devices.
Yeah, I mean, everything depends on the way and on the way you're building either edge or your IoT devices, right? In the example of going cloud is where are you storing that global configuration that if affected, then you affect all of your IoT devices, right? And it's going back to the data, to the source code, to the source code of the application, to the source code of your configuration. And it goes back to something you probably mentioned is governing the code continuously, through policy as code, the kind of technology we use. And for us, we tell our customers, what are you using to build applications? Like, let's discover that together. We have enterprises that don't know what the developers are using to
Right,
actually get this to market.
right.
So every company, every enterprise, every single industry, it has their only unique use cases of how they're using their cloud and how they're using the services and what data means different. It has to be anything that they use to protect. It has to be adaptable, scalable. That's what it is. It has to be adaptable because every single company is completely different. We're not longer in the world of everyone is running the same Cisco or Juniper router and the same firewall and the same Dell servers. Unfortunately,
Yeah,
every company is now a software company, and those software companies are built with different technology stacks. And that's the
yeah,
challenge.
totally, totally. Switching gears from like enterprise level companies to small businesses or startups, like, so if you're a startup, maybe you're like one developer by yourself, or a couple of people, you just spun up your first EC2 instance, or whatever cloud it is, like, um, what does that person need to be doing? Like, what kind of stuff do you need to worry about at the beta level of your software? Like, is this only something like big companies need to worry about, or does like even a small
No,
company need to think about this?
no, every company, especially if they're building a product to a highly regulated industry, must think about security. And I'll tell you why. The startups today, they need to be more conscious than ever about security because the procurement processes and the vendor due diligence that enterprises are having are very rigid and can take startups a long time to go through, right? So from a startup
Absolutely.
perspective, they need to understand when I go to market and I start selling my awesome software to a Goldman Sachs, for example, how can I make sure that my security is very well done so I can go through a successful vendor due diligence, right? And they need to think that way at scale. Now, when it comes to solutions, because their environments are still small, is the best way to start doing things right, you know.
Absolutely.
And I think my true advice for small companies and startups that need to have their security is make sure you don't spread yourself too thin on the technology stack. Don't pick something in AWS and go to GCP and pick three things for CI/CD pipeline. Pick as few as possible solutions that you want to handle, and actually start using the cloud native tools. AWS and Azure, they have amazing really tools inside of their cloud providers that can help you get going, right? And study those and be able to manage a small cloud with just doing things right and use the tools that it comes with the clouds, right? A policy first approach for us only works when it's a large enterprise, medium to large enterprise with multi cloud, multiple developers. And that's the solution to that problem. but for
Yeah.
startups and small companies, there's a lot of really good tools already come with your technology stack, and you can use it today and, and start thinking about the future as you scale. But things can be
Yeah,
done right.
I agree with you. I mean, there's a lot of stuff already that you can just use off the shelf. I think the worst thing to do is when people just try to invent their own way of
Yeah.
like, here's how I'm going to do this, here's how I'm going to roll that, But as you said, they already come with stuff, and I think a little bit goes a long way. If you just have it in your mind as you're doing it, in the long run, you're in better shape. Um,
Yeah.
do you think? What do you think? Some of like the big uh, like potential opportunities are, or areas for startups to be involved in cybersecurity governance and compliance? Like what's like something that you're watching that you think is going to develop in the next few years?
I can, I can. Um, so the biggest thing that that customers are struggling in today's world, and I tell you, there's multiple areas here of growth, and this is a good gem. Whoever's listening to this, um, data classification, understanding what data you're running and where you're running that data. um, this is very important, and that's a huge area of concern of the enterprise customers and all the customers, is understanding the type of data. And data is now your crown jewels, and that's an area there where we need to pay a lot of attention to when it comes to compliance, governance, security, is classifying the data, organizing your data, tagging your data, because there's a lot of that that comes into play when you talk about risk, when you talk about automation. Like everything is
Yeah,
around the context. Um, that's one area. The second area is there's a lot of opportunity in cloud security, architect, education. We don't talk
well,
about
that's a
this
good
much,
point.
but there will be three something, millions of positions open, and no one is educating security engineers to become cloud security architects. And the definition of an architect is 10, 15 years of experience on anything, right? When it comes to the engineering world. But when you look at cloud,
It
cloud has
hasn't been
only been
around that long.
around for 10, 15 years at best, right? So companies are missing this big piece, and we need to, there's a huge opportunity in pure education. And we're seeing it today. And how do you transform legacy information security leaders to cloud security architects in today's world? And the third one is automation. Automation is going to run everything. Automation, and more programmatic robotic automation is going to do it. Is how do you build something that can be self-heal, self-completed, and self-remediated? It's a big area of growth.
Yeah, I agree that those are some amazing ideas. I never even thought about the cloud security architect one. I mean, that's completely necessary. Where else are you going to get that training unless you've actually, been around it?